Lời đầu tiên xin chào các độc giả đã đến với website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com. Khi tìm đến với website rèn luyện kỹ năng, chắc hẳn bạn đang mong muốn tìm cho mình một công cụ tốt nhất trong quá trình rèn luyện kỹ năng. Kỹ năng ở đây có thể là kỹ năng lãnh đạo, kỹ năng bán hàng, kỹ năng mềm, kỹ năng sống và rất nhiều các kỹ năng khác. Thông thường khi nghĩ đến việc rèn luyện các kỹ năng như chúng tôi đã đề cập ở trên, chúng ta thường hay nghĩ đến việc tìm mua cái đầu sách hoặc tham gia các chương trình hội thảo. Nhưng trong cuộc sống bận rộn của thế kỷ 21, thời gian và tiền bạc là hai thứ luôn bị giới hạn nhiều nhất. Với sự ra đời của website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com, chúng tôi mang đến cho bạn một công cụ tốt hơn trong việc rèn luyện kỹ năng của mình, đó chính là các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng. Bạn sẽ không còn phải tốn quá nhiều thời gian để đọc sách hay tốn quá nhiều tài chính để tham gia các chương trình hội thảo. Chỉ cần bỏ DVD vào đầu máy, ngay lập tức bạn đã có thể tận hưởng những thước phim quý giá được chia sẻ từ các diễn giả nổi tiếng tại Việt Nam và trên thế giới. Website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com cung cấp đầy đủ cho bạn các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng trên nhiều lĩnh vực. Tất cả các DVD rèn luyện kỹ năng của các diễn giả nước ngoài có tại website rèn luyện kỹ năng.com đều có phụ đề 100% hỗ trợ tối đa cho quý độc giả khi theo dõi. Rèn luyện kỹ năng.com cam kết chất lượng tất cả các DVD khi cung cấp cho quý khách hàng. Với hân hạnh được phục vụ cho rất nhiều các khách hàng trên cả nước. Chỉ cần click đặt hàng, trong vòng 1 đến 3 ngày, bạn đã có thể cầm sản phẩm trong tay. Rèn luyện kỹ năng hân hạnh được phục vụ quý khách.
Investor, educator, and author Robert Kiyosaki has changed millions of lives all over the world. His book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, has been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 5 years. We all know that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is growing, and Social Security and Medicare are in a financial mess. And just affording to live is getting expensive. So how does a person get ahead financially? The answer is raising your financial IQ and having your money work for you. Here's Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dads Teach to Be Rich.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you. Please take your seats. Thank you. May I see a show of hands? How many people have already read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Good. Thank you. Has anybody not read it? Oh, good. There's still a few customers out there. I'm glad to see that. I'm not going to be talking so much about Rich Dad, Poor Dad today, but I'm going to be on this program. But I'll be talking about this book here. It's our latest product called Teach to Be Rich. And in my opinion, it's a whole new direction for Rich Dad in many ways. We're going into trying to do our best to solve what I consider to be a massive, massive financial problem, not only in America, but throughout the world here. And when you look at the globe here, my personal concern is this growing gap between the haves and have-nots. And all throughout the world, no matter where I go, there's always people who are rich in every country, but there's also the poor, and there's also those that are, struggling financially. So this product, Teach to Be Rich, is really designed to help solve, and there's many causes of the problem, but one way of solving that problem is through education. So that's what this Teach to Be Rich product is about. And if I could explain what's happening in our school systems, there's many types of education, like there's music education, health education, cooking education, stuff like this. But to be successful in today's complex world and getting more complex world, we need 3 types of basic education. And one of them is academic education, which is reading and writing and arithmetic. It's very important that you be able to read and write. The second type of education is professional education. And when I was in school back in the 60s, if you did really well, you were A's, then you went to become a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. Since I wasn't an A student, I didn't go to those professions and things like this. But and these two are very important. My poor dad was a man who really thought this was all you needed. He kept saying, go to school so you can get a high-paying what? Job. And that's all my poor dad thought I needed. My rich dad, who was my best friend's father, he said if you wanted to be successful, you needed financial education. And unfortunately, as many of us know, our school systems teach us very little or anything about financial education. So I'm not saying that these are not important. I'm saying that today, just going to school, just to get a good, be able to read and write and have a job, is inadequate. What I'm saying today, in today's complex world, we all need financial education. So what this course or this program is about, and this Teach to Be Rich program is about financial education. It doesn't mean to negate any of this here. So if I could go into, I did graduate from high school and go on, and my professional education was, I learned to be a ship's officer. So I drove tankers for Standard Oil of California, and I also flew aircraft for the Marine Corps, U.S. Marine Corps, so I was a pilot in Vietnam. So I've had two professions, but I've never used any of them, very simply because my rich dad taught me this here. And the way my rich dad began, at the age of 9, began teaching me financial education was really simple. He just started playing the game of Monopoly. I remember as a kid, 9 years old, I'd go to my rich dad's office. I'd say, "You gonna teach me you're rich?" He goes, "Sure." And he'd break out the Monopoly board game, and we'd sit there and play for hours. And he'd tick, 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 tick. How many people in this room have played Monopoly? Good. And I sat there, and then I'd go home, and I'd say to my poor dad, the school teacher, I said, "Guess what I did today?" I said, "I played Monopoly." And he goes, "Oh, what a waste of time. Put that silly game away and do your what? Homework, so you can get a good, safe, secure what? Job." So here, my dad saying Monopoly was a waste of time, and my rich dad saying this is a brilliant game. So I kept going back and forth, and that's why I'm schizophrenic today, because I don't know the difference. But the difference here is this: I keep playing this game of Monopoly, and then I go home, and my poor dad would say it's a waste of time. So one day I asked my rich dad, I'm only 9 years old, I said, "Why do you say this is so important?" So he actually took me out, and he showed me, this is in Hawaii where I was growing up, he showed me what were the representations of his 4 greenhouses. He'd sit there like that. I said, "What does this mean?" He says, "Well, the formula for great wealth is found on the Monopoly game board." And most of us know the formula. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So it started to dawn on me at the age of 9, my rich dad was playing Monopoly for real, and my poor dad, a school teacher, PhD, thought it was a waste of time. And so I was really quite confused. So then at the age of 9, it goes fast forward, at 19, I go to school in New York. I went to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in New York. I got a congressional appointment for that. So I come back from school in New York. I'm now 19 years old, and my rich dad has bought the big red hotel smack dab in the middle of Waikiki Beach. And suddenly I went, holy mackerel, he's done it. In 10 years, he went from a poor man to a rich man playing Monopoly. And meanwhile, I go back to my dad, and he's still saying, "Be sure you get good what? Grades, and get a good what? Job." And that's why the whole difference is spanned. So one of the reasons I was able to retire at a relatively early age of 47, my wife was 37 when she retired, was not because of what we learned here. And again, I'm not saying this is important. I'm saying it was because this is also important today. So at the age of 47, I retired very simply playing Monopoly. And today, I still play Monopoly. I think it's a really fun game, So my concern, and the reason I created this Teach to Be Rich program is because, as I said, all across the world, there's a growing gap between the haves and have-nots. The good news is, people in China and India and things like that, many of them, their standards of living are coming up. But the poor are still poor. And that's not that healthy. So if I show you a diagram here, this here is the year 2000. And this is why I'm concerned. In my opinion, and many economists and other people would disagree with me, right now the U.S. looks like this. You have the rich, and you have the poor. Okay. And this is the U.S., but it's a worldwide problem. And in here, you have the great middle class. My concern is that by the year 2020, and it's just going to start in a few years, it's going to look like this. In a few years, due to a lack of financial education in America, I predict that there will be more rich, and I intend to be one of them, but there will also be more poor. There will be an increasing number of poor. How many people know family or friends or co-workers who have nothing set aside for their retirement. Good, thank you. And that's what I'm concerned about. And what I'm really concerned about is this, I've been going into it as time goes on, is one of the reasons this problem happened is very simply because our school system still teaches us nothing about money, and people like my poor dad, a school teacher, always said the government should take care of you. And our problem right now is in America, from presidents on down, there are millions and millions and millions of people who are on the government handout. I mean, Clinton is on the government handout, every senator is on it, military officers, firefighters, soldiers and everything, they're all on this government handout. And what I'm concerned about is America, which is a great rich country, will soon become a very poor country. Does that make sense to you guys here? And the reason we become poor is simply because we have so many people, not just poor people, expecting the government to take care of them. The concern here is this here is the middle class. And these are the guys that are going to pay for these guys here. Does that make sense to you? And I can hear some of you saying, well, it's not my problem because I'm still young. How many people in this room were born after 1964? Good. I want to thank you because you're the ones to be paying for my retirement. And these are the people that pay the taxes. So the reason I created Teach to Be Rich here is very simply because I predict, and I could be wrong, like in the